Okay. Hello,
He is risen. Hope you all had a lovely Easter.
We are doing something we haven't done in a long time, which is going directly to the top man, the top brass of the LDS Church, the Vicar of Christ himself, Russel M. Nelson. Can I give it up? Give it up, folks.
Oh, do the clap. It's way funnier if we both do the clap. Thank you.
Dear leader.
You know how when General Conference first happens, when you're an ex-Mormon, you're very plugged in and you kind of want to watch it all just to see what they're saying about you, and then you get further and further removed from it. I only realised it was conference this weekend because a wonderful subscriber called Blake Venmo'd me and said, thanks for helping us get through conference weekend.
Oh, that's sweet.
And so I was like, oh, it's conference weekend. And also, Blake.
Thanks, Blake. This one's for Blake.
Anyway, so we've heard a few things about what went down at conference, but I wouldn't say that much.
Yeah,
I haven't got an overly positive impression based on what I've seen.
No, I forgot it was conference until I saw someone on Twitter being like, being an ex-Mo is hard during conference, and I was like, is it? Oh yeah. Wait a second, no one's reached out to me yet. Have they given up on my soul?
I've seen at least 2 people who are active Mormons criticizing conference.
Oh wow. 2 Mormons casting stones at God's most vulnerable. The head of a $200 billion corporation.
People are less scared to criticize the prophet now, I've noticed. Anyway, I think we should just dive in. We're going to watch, President Nelson himself.
Ever since he got vaccinated.
This is what God himself wants us to know in this 6-month period between conferences. This is the most important message for his mouthpiece on the earth today to be sharing. So I, for one, am very excited.
We've had the most insane political circus the last year, a global pandemic for the last year, fires, storms, tempests, wars and rumors of wars. And so I'm anxious to see what God's single mouthpiece on the earth today is going to tell us. I remember that was always our pitch on the mission. It was like, hey, we'd walk up to people and be like, if Moses were on the earth today, wouldn't you want to know what he's saying? And people were like, yeah, what is he saying? And we're like, don't get tattoos, I guess.
You ready for this?
All right, so here's the thing. We don't want to get copyright struck by the church.
So we're not showing any clips. We're just going to respond.
Like old seminary videos, I don't think they care that much, but because it's like the prophet and General Conference and it just happened and their marketing team is like the most plugged into this right now, we just don't want to risk getting struck, because they have stricken us before.
We've been strucken. Okay. Woo! See you at the first trigger. So I will say, I know this is so bare minimum, but given how much of the American church membership is made up of kind of evangelical type thinkers or people who are... There's a lot of Mormon anti-maskers. It is nice that the prophet himself is not denying the reality of COVID and is getting the vaccine, because there's a lot of anti-vaxxers in Mormonism.
Oh yeah.
So credit, it's bare minimum, but it's nice because you could imagine a situation where that wasn't the case.
Given he is a man of science, a doctor who doesn't believe in evolution, it could be worse.
Yeah, exactly. I think him talking about how the church is a global church is also a very smart move right now. And I can appreciate that. Just, again, there's a lot of racism, and this isn't doing much to be anti-racist, it's just trying to get like a bit more of a sense of unity, I suppose. I mean, I know it's PR as well. It's like, these are the messages that you need to put out, because this is where, I get that. But I could see that just being beneficial. Again, opening up a lot of xenophobic members' minds. Am I being too hopeful?
Maybe. Well, I don't know. It's always a double-edged sword, because it's the truth a little distorted, and the truth will always come back to bite them, which is why they're just totally hemorrhaging members right now. But what they also do is, throw out those half-truths. Like, we're a global church that cares about everybody. And kind of lull the membership into carnal security. I was just thinking about, it's an insane, this is kind of tangential. It's how we do here.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Tangential.
Tan and Gential.
And Gentile?
Oh, yeah. You were born in the covenant.
Move on.
All right. Driving through wine country, California. It reminded me of this Mormon message they showed us in college that for me I was like, what the fuck? They it was this like heartwarming Mormon message about this ward of Hispanic members that every Christmas day
You told me about that.
had to go work in the vineyard, pruning the Lord's vineyard for the church. And it was all like, aren't these Hispanic saints just the most faithful, sacrificing their Christmas every year to work in the vineyard? What incredible faith. And it's like, why are you making the Hispanic members do it? Because your Christmas is like too important? You can't rotate that around? No one's like, okay, maybe we give the Hispanic members a break. Next year, you know,
It's like benevolent racism. Like,
Absolutely.
they're so amazing for doing this thing they shouldn't have to be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like that's a calling that they receive from the church to do.
We're watching at 1.25 and I feel like we could go up to 1.5 easy.
Okay, you know
so
what?
Slow.
Thankfully, even the pandemic has not been able to slow the onward march of his truth. The gospel of Jesus Christ is exactly what is needed in this confused, contentious, and weary world.
Well, it's interesting how he has to make... The church is very reliant on this idea that it's constantly growing. The work is moving forward, even as the numbers like don't reflect that.
I'm sure he's going to go into, you know, a doubt your doubts kind of spiel. And that's funny that that's the setup is like, in a world that is so confused, and you can tell it's confused because everyone's leaving us. They are very, very confused right now. It's like, actually, things are starting to make a lot of sense around here.
Where's my drink?
Your drink. Get the woman a drink! Okay, while you're looking for your drink, I'm going to just have a quick glance at my iPhone 12 Pro Max.
We both got iPhone 12s at the weekend, which makes us sound richer than we are, but we just both happened to upgrade on the same day. Well, he said no message is more important for our happiness, and I haven't found that to be true. Like, there's tons of messages that have been way more important for my happiness. So then you get into territory where that then makes members feel like they have to cast doubt on the happiness of others. They have to then believe that a lot of people are miserable when they're actually happy, which completely warps your perception of reality.
It's like, if you don't take this medication, you'll be very sick from not taking medication.
Yeah.
Like, you'll get the not taking medication illness.
Yeah. This is all very leading into the superiority complex in Mormonism. Is like, no message other than ours is more important. So then, you know, when a Mormon's just posting about the church on social media a lot, they see that as like activism, as, you know, all other issues become less significant because you're like, well, I'm spreading the best one. So like, if I'm going to spread one, it should be the best one.
I remember hearing a conversation among family members where an aunt was like, if I didn't have the gospel, I'd be off saving the whales. Like, it was this big crazy thing. And it's like, you don't think that the God who made this world would like want you interested and invested in it? Like, if you're not learning how to be a God by taking care of the world around you, how else are you going to learn it?
Isn't that like the main thing you're doing for like billions and billions of years?
And it's exactly what you said. Like, Mormons have to believe that everyone else has fake happiness, imitation happiness. They're only pretending. They only think
if
they're
happy, then they're only happy for now. They're ultimately going to get their comeuppance, and then that leads to a weird sort of like vengeance mindset. And there's just a lot of ways that messages like this that are so like innocuous when you're in the church would just feel so like not a thing. It's like, this is the ways that this is like psychologically affecting you, and this is the way that your perception of reality is being warped. And like, isn't that what a cult is? It's like, it's mind control.
It really is. You do have to say like, okay, when something bad happens to you, it's because you weren't faithful. When the same bad thing happens to me, it's a test of faith, or it's devil coming at me because I'm so righteous. Makes you have to relate to people weirdly. And something tells me that it's not just the gospel of Jesus Christ, because the gospel of Jesus Christ is supposed to be super duper simple. It's like, have faith. That's it. Like, be baptized, maybe, if you're a biblical literist. Jesus said be born again, so, you know, read that as you will. But something tells me it's not that simple for him. There's a few other steps that are gonna, you know, some loyalty dues to be part of the organization, to rep the brand.
According to the...
He just said the faith in Jesus Christ is the foundation of all belief.
Didn't he say that? I mean, that's just bullshit.
I mean, the thing that always, I guess it's not surprising now, but once you get out of the Mormon box and you realize these are just like just some old business people who
Yeah.
not like philosophers and not like
faith in our business is the key to, it's like every ad in the 70s.
like what an absurd like just philosophical statement. The belief in Jesus Christ is the foundation of all belief. It's like, what are you talking about? I could think of like 3 other things off the top of my head. What about the belief in existence itself? You got to start with that.
Yeah.
Like, what's real, man? Does God exist? Does God have a son? Okay, boom, 2 more steps.
Belief that your belief in Jesus Christ is reliable. Sorry, he just said essentially that God is only pleased with us when we come to him. Whatever else you do, unless you're a Mormon or you're coming to him, he doesn't care. It's like, what if you're like saving the fucking whales?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is God not like, that human's saving the whales? That's really cool.
No, he'd be much more happy if you just had some like, you know, pencil pushing job in a bureaucracy that is slowly killing our planet.
Everything.
Like, much better, as long as you can support your overly burdened family. It's just so sad how small the spiritual paradigm is. Like, even I was reflecting on a Mormon scripture about being a witness of God at all times, in all things, in all places. And as I've grown like spiritually and relate to the totality of existence as, you know, the universe, the one, the all, God, I don't think it's like a conscious thing that like loves me and cares about me. It's just is consciousness. It's just everything that is. And when you have that relation to it, then you do literally witness God at all times and all things in all places. And whatever you become conscious of, you're becoming conscious and witnessing God. And that's like so different than the Mormon thing, which they're always trying to find evil in everything and being like, God's not there. God's not there. I refuse to see that because it's God's not there. And it's like,
God couldn't be in that.
Yeah. So this idea that like you have to choose to believe in God, like what kind of God do you have to choose to believe in? Like I don't choose to believe in the sun. The sun's just there. And you just witness it happening. I mean, the belief in God should be the same way. It should be so evident that it's not something that you have to like find your way around in some strange abstract sense.
Yep.
I don't know.
Yep.
It just seems like such a flimsy...
Very bad juvenile logic. It's our faith that unlocks the power of God in our lives. So you have to believe in something before you've experienced it. I mean, yeah, as I'm saying it out loud, I'm like, yeah, they openly teach that. But I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
What a bad call.
It's weird. He says, you know, we have to have faith that Jesus can through Jesus we grow and become stronger and all the things he said. And it's like, but you can actually just like observe people with or without a belief in Jesus just growing and becoming stronger and more resilient.
And he's saying it's only through. Did he say it's only through faith that we can repent? It's just not true. Like if you think of repentance as like changing your ways and like evolving out of whatever harmful thing you were doing, then you only have to look at the neuroplasticity of the brain, which is like well documented by science, and like the massive potential we all have for growth and evolution throughout our lives.
But it's not that simple for them. They're like, you've committed a cosmic crime and there must be blood.
Yeah, it's like the cosmos is still, Kolob is still pointing its fingers at you. So even if you're a completely different person now, it doesn't matter. You got to go through our system or it doesn't count.
It's funny how I consider myself a person of faith and it has nothing to do with belief. I don't believe in anything. But I trust that whatever's happening is like that I can make the best of it or like die. It's you know, it's different now. It's so weird that it's like caught up in these. You have to be able to believe these unbelievable things rather than just like trusting that whatever's true will manifest itself and that you can pursue that at any cost.
Yeah, I also feel like as you become more spiritually mature, you realize that the beliefs you hold influence what your experience with reality is. So there are certain things it does make sense to choose to believe, you know, like people are inherently good is probably a useful thing for most people to believe in, or the universe is on my side, or like life is on my side, or those can be like really positive beliefs for people to adopt because they become true as you believe them and like look for signs of it. And also if you have a mindset of growth and like see everything that happens to you as an opportunity to evolve and become more conscious and to become more open-hearted and loving, then truly whatever happens to you, like it will work for your good because of your commitment to personal evolution. not necessarily because like all these pleasurable external things happen, although that could be part of it, because I do feel like the healthier we are, the more we can sort of pursue good things. You know, if you're in a good mental place, for example, you can enjoy life a lot more, and you can make more good things happen for yourself.
And I don't think that comes from a place of blind belief. It comes from like gathered wisdom.
Yeah.
Because I can look back on my life, and I'm so happy with my life, and I recognize that if anything in the past had been different, things would be different now.
Yeah.
And because I'm so appreciative of this present moment, I'm appreciative of everything that made this present moment possible, including the painful things like some of the going through my Mormon faith transition was a really...
I also wonder I wonder how different it is, because I think a lot of LDS people likely feel quite trapped, and they're not necessarily like, I love my present reality. They're like, I want a better reality in the next life. And I'm willing to sacrifice certain happinesses in this life, maybe.
And that makes me happy.
Like, I'm not saying that all LDS people are unhappy, but I do feel like the culture is quite stifling, and like I don't think many humans thrive when their sort of creativity and wildness is suppressed.
Self-expression.
Like that. Yeah, and also self-awareness, because the church literally teaches you inaccurate things about like life and how your mind works, or what things mean, and so that sort of sets you up for failure, because if you believe that this message, this abstract Jesus message, is like the single most important thing for everyone's happiness, like how's that gonna influence how you show up in the world? I forgot how circular this all was. Like, what's the prophet gonna say? The prophet's gonna say to keep believing in this thing. Like, it's so focused on like, do you believe this thing enough, rather than like, what does that belief then lead to in terms of like behavior, and but it's all just like, have faith so you can have faith, so you can like, it never seems to really like go very far beyond that.
Nope. I mean, there will be other talks about tithing, so
right.
you can make sure you know where your faith is being directed.
Yeah, but there's just like no exploration of real issues.
No.
They keep everything as vague and universally as applicable as possible, while just trying to get you to entrench in the organization.
It baffles me beyond belief that anyone can watch this and be like, yeah, I believe that guy speaks to God. Like, that's not an
That's your idea of the
person.
most spiritual, yeah.
Well, when that's the only spiritual leadership you're exposed to, what else are you supposed to believe?
And it's
but then
like what your dad is like, so you feel kind of comforted by that,
Yeah, exactly. The whole patriarchy's falling apart. It's unraveling.
Even though your personal challenges may loom as large as Mount Everest, your mountains may be loneliness, doubt, illness, or other personal problems.
Etc. Etc.
Doesn't get much more complicated than that.
It was just very like corporate sounding. I don't know.
I was just thinking, it's like, this is all just such tripe, like regurgitated tripe, like to even call them cult leaders is almost overselling
giving them
their
too much
abilities.
credit.
They're businessmen.
Well, it's like the Mormon church has a very well established like framework, structure, culture. So it's, whereas in like the cults that we typically think of when we think of cults, it's not. It's like some guy who's
You're
just
thinking of
started
charismatic leader.
Yeah, so I'm saying they don't need charismatic leaders at this point, because the structure's so well established. They just plug and play, and this is what we get.
He's dead. Put in the new one.
Yeah. Next oldest guy. Put him in.
He does have like somewhat. I mean, the other guy, it was more traditionally charismatic, but the Heaven's Gate guy, you ever watch him? Doe. He talks like this, or maybe like Iring. He even gets a little teary.
Oh yeah, he's
you watch
like
one of those
Iring.
videos and you're like, this is a very similar vibe.
Lazy learners and lax disciples will always struggle to muster even a particle of faith.
Okay, so this is the quote I've seen everywhere. Lazy learners and lax disciples will struggle to muster even a grain of faith.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know how, I guess we're going to see how he moves on with this, but I wonder how much he's going to link that to, therefore, if you don't have enough faith, it's because you're a lazy learner and a lax disciple, which doesn't need to be said at this point on our channel, but in case you're new, that was not the case for us. We were very, I'd say, hyperactive learners, and we probably needed to chill out for our mental health, but we just kept doing it, even, when nothing was coming.
Yeah.
Like, we really gave it our all.
It's funny how, like, in the context of what I consider to be true faith, which for me, like, when I lost belief in religion and, like, literally had to learn, I had to learn to stand on my own 2 feet and find my spiritual essence, my, like, reason for living, the life flowing through me. And to reject that is to be dead spiritually is to be dead physically for me. Because it's that thing that keeps me up and going every morning and putting food in my mouth, and everything I do comes from that, like, spiritual essence. So faith is just leaning into that. It's trusting that, like, my happy moments and my sad moments will all be connected, and that's the way that life is, and it's okay. I don't have to freak out anytime that there's hard times, because I know that there will be good times after, and suffering is always intermixed with joy, and that's just how it is. That's what faith is. But for him, it's not about that. It's like, because he's not worried that people are going to lose faith and, like, commit suicide. That's not his big fear. It's that they're going to find their faith elsewhere, that it's going to be channeled away from the coffers of the church. Because it's not going to be faith in Jesus Christ, which is the most important thing, because you can have lots of people who have faith in Jesus Christ who aren't Mormon, but it's the lax disciples and the lazy learners who just don't want to put in the effort to really learn what this is all about and why they should be paying their dues and submitting and turning off their brain and their critical thinking.
And it's continuing to hold up that narrative that people leave the church because they're lazy and they don't do enough. Because he's setting up this false idea that the harder you work or the more you try to learn, the more effort you put in, the more faith you'll have. And that's just not true for a large portion of the ex-Mormon community. Like, ex-Mormons a lot of the time are the people that cared too much, that learned too much, that read the Doctrine and Covenants 3 times and then were like, okay, what the hell? Like, a lot of members would just read through it, like, in lessons and not ever really think about what's actually going on, Anyway, so it's just, and it's a common cult high demand religion tactic to demonize people who leave as lazy and not trying hard enough, and to just set up this false idea that it's all just like, if you try, then you'll be rewarded. Like, it's this, like, that's not how life works.
And if you're not rewarded, you're not trying hard enough.
Yeah, so then it's like, when is enough?
Because you're a piece of shit and need to repent.
Like, we were doing, let's say we were putting, like, 6 hours a day into, like, figuring all this stuff out.
Not a hypothetical, really did that.
Yeah. And, like, with the goal of keeping faith and increasing faith, and that 100% that bias the whole time. It's not like any member would be like, oh, well, if you put that much work in, then fair enough, you can leave. It's still somehow not enough, even if it's not more time. Like, what is it more of? Is it just more of this circular, well, just believe, just choose to. But it's like, you don't understand, like, I can't choose to, because I don't believe it, and, like, I really want, it's just, you can't just choose things, ultimately. If your brain has been exposed to it, you can't just choose to believe in Santa Claus again. Like, someone could probably brainwash you into it if they really needed to, or, like, there's things you can do, but typically the average adult could never believe in Father Christmas again. Like, it's just not going to happen.
And yet, it seems to be the foundation of happiness, so I don't know.
I never really loved the message of, like, miracles come according to your faith in the Lord, because there's someone out there with, like, a loved one dying of something.
That's why David A. Bednar's message was, do you have faith to not have miracles?
I know.
I love that it's completely spun now.
I remember really, like, liking that one at the time. Faith to not be healed or whatever it was.
It's nice. There's a message for every angle.
Yeah, whatever happens.
It's just being like, we don't know how the fuck any of this
whatever
works.
Happens, it's all back to this. Just keep coming back to this.
Keep paying your tithing and reading the same book.
How? Only your unbelief will keep God from blessing you.
Only your unbelief will keep God from blessing you. He's really setting up, like, quite an intense, like, miracle promise here. And I just feel bad for all the members who are going to try so hard, do all these things, do everything, and then not have any miracles happen.
The miracle is the hope for some, like, Mark Hoffman type who's legit, who provides all these documents that proves the church is true. They're all holding out for that miracle.
Why will you not pause?
This just sounds like the captain of the Titanic. Like, it's, like, sinking, and he's just like, everyone, you're enjoying your trip. Choose to believe you're enjoying your trip. Choose to believe nothing bad is happening.
If you have any doubts about this, what's happening right now around you, just refer to the pamphlet you got when we moved you in. Yeah, it's interesting how front and center it is. Like, if you don't believe that this crazy story is true, it's like right there in the message from the prophet. Like, it has to be now. I don't know that it would have had to have been in the past. It was like, once you got them, you got them, kind of, with Mormonism. But now it's nice to see. It's nice to see them worried.
I'm waiting for the... Today we're going to talk about epistemology, which precedes a belief in Jesus Christ.
Study with a desire to believe rather than with the hope that you can find a flaw in the fabric of a prophet's life.
I don't know how many people in a group like this where your whole social circle is Mormon and your whole worldview is Mormon and your what's going to happen to you when you die, how you're going to be with your loved ones forever, like every single thing in your like heart and life is wound up in this church. People are not looking, typically, are not looking to find flaws in the prophets. They're looking for the opposite. I feel like, well, at least for us, and I feel like for most ex-Mormons in the community, or at least a lot, it's like you find a flaw and you're like, shit, no. This message he's giving right now doesn't make a difference to anyone who's actually doubting. All it does is, again, reinforce the narrative among the members that are not doubting, that the people who are leaving because they don't believe this is true are doing so because they wanted to, they were looking for a way out, which, again, is just not true. Like, so much of Mormonism these days just feels like revolved around these false narratives about people who leave. It's such a giant thing. Like, we're getting to them, and you see it over the years. Like, from when we started this YouTube channel like 6 years ago to now, they are clearly more worried.
And it's funny, you'd think they'd come up with a more creative approach to this, because it ends up shooting them in the foot, because you have all these people who are experiencing legitimate doubts
like,
for
well,
legitimate
I'm not
reasons.
flaws.
Yeah,
Like,
and then
I'm
it just
having
makes
the
them feel
opposite.
more isolated from the church. So it's
And
like, they're
you're
of
not
course
gonna
they're
feel like understood by this leader, and that's you're trying to. If you're trying to maintain, like, help people think that you're a prophet, then you need to like accurately characterize what people are going through. So it's almost like they know. Yeah,
far from giving like a good remedy to the situation, they can't even come up with a creative
so
bad
we're just
one.
gonna tell you that you're kind of like bad.
Spin it better. I know you guys have the money.
Seriously, I'm like, spin it better. You could. Oh, wow.
Also about the scriptures, like
Casual mention of discrepancies.
Don't look through the scriptures to find flaws in the prophet's life. It's like the scriptures are the propaganda book. Like, this is our best selling story.
Translated through the mouth of God.
Yeah,
like,
this is God.
This is his best stuff.
This is his MVPs writing about themselves in the best possible light they can imagine.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you're finding faults in a prophet's life at that point, that's on you, my dude.
So there was a bit of racism in that book, okay? We've changed.
So he chopped off, the spirit told him to chop off a defenseless drunk's head. We all make mistakes.
We've all been there. He said, stop increasing your doubts by rehearsing them with other members.
Do not share your thoughts. Stay isolated, keep them tucked deep down into your heart. Don't let anyone know.
The use of the word rehearsing is like so insidious to me, because it's like, that's the best word you could use that like didn't say the thing that you knew would be inappropriate to say. You couldn't say sharing, because that would ring alarm bells,
about.
Right? Yeah. So he's saying rehearsing, again, as if you have this desire to perform them. They're not really real. Like, it's, again, just this whole thing is just about making people like us look bad.
And again, it's like, I'm happy, my family does their thing. Neither of us have much of an expectation for others to change, though my parents have got the revelation that I will eventually come back to church.
We're clapping this video. It's a clapping one.
But it is sad to think, my family is watching this, and of course I'm on their mind, and they're just like, yeah, that sucks, but I don't need the approval of this guy. Like,
hot tip, anything. Don't try and get your family members who are LDS to accept you. Find a way to accept yourself without their approval, because it's a fruitless pursuit.
Third, act in faith.
Allow the Lord to guide your spiritual journey. Act in faith. That's what he said. It's so weird, because if you had faith, genuine faith, that your religion was true, and that at the end of the day, with any scrutiny that was applied to it, any counter evidence or arguments, you would always be able to find the truth. So if you had the truth, you would not need to talk about doubt ever, Because the truth would always win out. All you would do was present a better argument than the ones that are being levied at you. But they know that they can't win in an argument, so all they do is tell you to avoid the arguments.
Yep. Think about it. Write about it. Then receive more faith by doing something that requires more faith.
He's literally describing life coaching right now. When he's like, figure out what you want to be true for yourself, and then think about how you would act if that was true, and then do that thing. Like, that's just like basic like habit reformation. Mm-hmm. It's like, it does work. Like, that formula probably would work. Like, I would like to be someone has more faith in this church. What would someone like that do? Read their scriptures for an hour a day. You start doing it for an hour a day, then you start seeing yourself as that thing. Because you're like, well, I read my scriptures for an hour a day. I'm a very religious person. Yes, of course I have faith. You know.
Totally.
It works.
The mechanics are there, and they just pretend like they own them.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm just, again, I don't regret my experience in the LDS church. Not that I don't have any criticisms or complaints about it, because I do, and because I don't want people to go through the same things I did, the harmful parts. But all in all, again, I'm so grateful for my life where it is that I wouldn't change anything about the past, because I'm just totally content with now. So that being said, I had a conversation recently with a friend who's been out for many decades and has just lived a wonderful, beautiful, full life. And we both agreed that the church is a good cult to be from. It's a good church to leave. And, he's talking about imagining your faith growing. It's like, do it. Mormons should actually put their faith, like, if they had more faith, you'd see more people leaving the church. And that's what's happening, is they keep doubling down. And what happens when you double down and get serious about trying to figure out what you actually believe and how to communicate it, and how to wrestle with doubts with people who are also leaving, like, your belief in the church begins to diminish naturally, but your faith in the overall scheme of things and how you relate to it increases. So I've definitely seen that to be true. Like, I'm glad that I followed my faith out of the church, because now I have an expanded personal capacity to interface with the world and to, experience spiritual fulfillment.
And it was almost like the size of your faith that made you so willing to engage with difficult issues, whereas like, I feel like people with less faith would have like immediately turned it off.
Yeah, what you said before, there's the bell curve in the diagram, right? The church works best for people in the middle. Those with very little faith or a lot of it will tend to leave.
Would Joseph and Hiram Smith have suffered martyrs' deaths defending the restoration of the Lord's church unless they had a sure witness that it was true?
Would Doe in the Heaven's Gate have committed suicide unless they had absolute certainty that it was true? And they do have absolute certainty. There's people, I watched the documentary, and there are people who still believe it. Even though they've had decades to unpack, they saw them all commit suicide. There's a guy who's like, I still want to be there. I feel like I failed my mission. Damn. You think you have more faith than that guy?
Also, it's not like Joseph Smith was like, I will die for this gospel. It's like, no, he just like got killed. He didn't want to be killed. He like tried to save himself by doing the Mason sign. Sorry, but the church is like still milking the pioneers so much. It's like, just because it's emotionally intense to imagine people dying on a trail, so they just bring it up all the time.
And gives you, it's the sense of heritage, and this is where I come from, and my people were persecuted, and I still feel that
This is
today.
the global church.
The antagonists of the Mountains Meadows Massacre. That's us.
Truly, faith is the power that enables the unlikely to accomplish the impossible. Do not minimize the...
Is he on Tumblr?
It takes faith to join the church and remain faithful. It takes faith to follow prophet.
No, it doesn't. It takes enough childhood trauma.
Rather than pundits and popular opinion.
Pundits and popular opinion. I would argue that it actually probably doesn't take faith to believe in a man you've been conditioned since birth is who you should listen to.
Yeah,
It's actually the easier choice for the brain.
It takes faith to serve a mission during a pandemic.
That's going to be a line for the Times.
I'm going to say that takes just blind belief in...
Or really not wanting to live with your parents.
Yeah.
It takes faith to live a chaste life when the world shouts that God's law of chastity is now outmoded. It takes faith to teach the gospel to children.
That's what's outmoded.
In a secular world. It takes faith.
It's funny because the modern generation, like Gen Z especially, but and a lot of millennials are like, yeah, if you don't want to have sex, don't have sex. Don't ever feel pressured to have sex. Don't think it's cool. Like, if you want to be asexual, do it. Like, they're so accepting of all of that. But in his mind we're all just like, it's outdated. It's like, no, shame culture's outdated. We don't really care if you're having sex or not.
Faith always increases our access to godly power.
Feels a little bit weird jumping from like these people were being flooded in Fiji to faith always increases our access to godly power. It's sounding a bit prosperity gospel-y, or like if you're faithful enough then there will be miracles and you won't have these problems.
And if it doesn't have faith, then it doesn't, but it will do it. And if it doesn't, it's probably your fault.
The Lord never slumbers.
He like almost like Freudian slipped through that. Like just
the delivery wasn't
the
great.
Church, the Jesus Christ will never. I'm sorry guys, we actually will fail you pretty dry. Don't put this on us.
I'm fully planning on screwing the future.
The church will never fail you. What does
Also,
that even mean?
Him saying even if everyone around you has failed, it's not great to set people up for a situation where they're going to feel like all their loved ones are failures because they don't believe in this thing anymore. But that's, again, us versus them. It's all there. Just like every minute of a conference talk is an us versus them thing, isn't it?
Because again, it's not about cultivating genuine faith or resilience, loyalty. Yeah.
All things are possible to them that believe.
I'm like, prove it. Do a McDonald's
Your growing
vegan
faith
sandwich.
in Him will move mountains.
Real mountains, beautiful. These mountains, whoa. Oh.
Hey, why are we trying to move all these mountains? I see all these mountains in Utah that have just been moved through mining, and it makes me pissed.
He is risen to bless the lives of all of God's children, wherever they
not
live.
Here. For He
With faith in
is
Him,
risen.
we can move them.
We're so close to being done. Yes.
I so testify, in the sacred name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen, sister.
I love a good witness of Jesus Christ by someone who assuredly has not had a single face-to-face convo with him, and probably, do you think he has a little bit of insecurity that he hasn't seen God, or has he worked it out in his mind and it's just like,
I could
that's not how it
see
works.
prophets kind of falling into two camps with that, like one of them being like, no, I am humble enough to not need that, and then others that are like, have an arrogance about it and kind of like Bednar. I really think he could make himself see Jesus, though. He seems... Anyway, overall, I'd say it was like a 2 out of 10.
Yeah.
Pretty bad.
It's just sad that, like, as a Mormon, you're conditioned to, like, hype this up so much. Like, oh my God,
this is what the prophet said!
The prophet! And really, they're just, like, waiting for Jeffrey R. Holland, someone who at least has an English degree, who can
substance,
a little bit of charisma at least.
It's interesting because, again, I always have this false idea that things have changed more than they have, because I've changed so much in, like, the 6 years since we left, that it's really wild seeing how, wow, I could have watched that talk 7 years ago. No problem.
No, it doesn't change.
Nothing, I mean, like, obviously things do, but slowly, very slowly. I kind of just thought they would have got better.
No.
Somehow, like I
he
thought
is just sloppy.
maybe they get like more help. I don't know what I thought actually, but I suppose it was exactly what I thought, and then also somehow worse.
Okay, this isn't even a tangent. This is just out of left field. I'm thinking about it. Here we go. The video Nuance Ho did about and we've done it on here. We did it as a Patreon exclusive. Reviewing Alex Boyer's urban musical about Joseph Smith. Yeah. Horrific in its own.
So
it's like
bad.
Never
less fun than we thought it would be.
Way less. Just agonizingly cringeworthy. But then she went to the GoFundMe where they're raising money to turn it into a full-length feature film.
Oh, I kind of want it to happen.
Oh yeah. Well, it would only play in Utah, and everyone's ward would be encouraged to see it, and that's where all the revenue would come from. Anyway, the story is about 3 men who were slaves who were released on condition that they be missionaries for the rest of their life.
A different kind of slavery.
And they're putting it out there like, isn't that the height of faith?
These Hispanics on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
No less.
Wow. It's like, I don't have to say anything about it. It's just so absurd that how tone deaf they can like be thinking that they're the height. Like, we're not racist. We let them stop doing manual labor and started making them do spiritual labor.
Seriously.
It's insane.
So if you want to watch us react to the mini musical version of that story-ish, it's kind of different, isn't it? Or is it? No, it is about this. Yeah. Just become a patron and you just instantly get access to all the Patreon-only videos we've ever done. So.
And we should have a playlist of Patreon videos, right? If not, we'll make one.
Yeah, let's make
When
an
you can just go
holistic
through.
playlist. Yeah, we should have done that.
Yeah. We'll get on that.
But yeah, so thank you to our patrons for making quality content like this possible. See you over there.